is very interesting. There's a lot to be said here. So go ahead anyway.
Yeah. All
Gerry, I'm glad to see you.
glad to see you too.
We've
Um,
gotten the Lions War Sutra straightened out in the sense of we don't really have to ask her the question about does rebirth and reincarnation exist, because the better question to ask is it relevant to be here now? And the answer is not relevant.
yeah.
And so that's what we just decided. So I thought that I'd put that on the recorder because last time we left with that up in the air.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So now you're telling me about Mir, and an Australian author.
Yeah. I was talking about this Australian author, Ainsley Mears, was a psychiatrist practicing in Melbourne. I think, well, he's long dead now. And he had been in Thailand or Burma or somewhere, and he had, I think, studied some Buddhist techniques. And what he was selling basically in his book was body scanning as a means to relaxation
Mm-hmm.
when for people in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And this interested me, and I think that's one of the first interests I had in this sort of field. Um, and he did actually, I think in one of his books, or possibly in another article or something that I read, refer to his having gone with another group of psychiatrists, I think, somewhere in somewhere in Southeast Asia, and I can't remember whether it was Burma or Myanmar. Well, I think it was Burma in those days, or Thailand, probably Thailand, because all Australians are always going to Thailand, and he'd had some contact with people there, and he was, I think he said that was where he got his technique from. But
Okay.
for what that's worth, what I
No, it fits into the story correctly.
hmm? Say again?
It it fits into the overall story quite nicely.
Yes, and then yes, well then I was interested in various other things. I tried the transcendental meditation, and it didn't provide the zap or the zing that Anapanasati has provided. Speaking of which, um, I should say that I yesterday managed to do a number of 5 minute sits of the day, um, as you have recommended, and I found that easier to stick to actually than trying to do 10-minute sittings at longer intervals. But this morning, a strange thing happened in that I sat down, which I normally am not doing at the moment, on a cushion, Japanese Zen style zafu and zabuton, and folded my legs into a strange position and didn't really get anywhere. And then eventually I did get somewhere. And unlike what has been happening, uh, well, I'll tell you what has been happening. Normally, what I do, I go through the steps of Anapanasati. I do the the breath, the body relaxation, keeping breathing. And then I find there is some sort of trigger that sets off the physical thrills, which,
The
well,
physical what's
physical thrills going through the body. Um,
using the word ills,
thrills,
thrill,
Thrills,
or
thrills. The
sensations such as
sensations, and
okay, vibrantly alive, tickling,
that's that sort of thing.
Bubbling up,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we get all that. The sort of happiness comes on, that I look for and find the sense of yippee, I've got it, which is a sort of more internal sense than the physical sensations. This is a sort of the mental thing that you talk about, of a feeling of success, right? So then, and that once one gets there, one can sort of say, right, okay, I've got it, I'm here. I don't need to think that I've got it. I can enjoy it. Now, this morning, what happened was quite different, because everything was much more low key. Everything was much more low key, and I didn't feel any great thrills. No, I can do this, no problem. Ha ha, ho hum. This just makes me feel really nice and happy and tranquil, and I don't actually, I don't feel like I understand that the first jhana is supposed to feel with this great sense of piti. It isn't. It's not like rapture that they talk about. It's much. It was much lower key. Everything was very low key.
Okay.
Is
Yes,
that?
that's
I mean,
exactly right.
is that
It,
right?
well, it's high key, especially when it's brand new.
Yeah.
Okay, titillating even.
Yeah.
Okay, so but once you've been titillated or tickled over and over again, you kind of get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like we can get used to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Even the joke is that enlightenment. Never mind, you'll get used to it.
Well.
Okay, so that's right. Everything begins to mellow out into everything's okay, everything's all right,
Hmm.
and allow that state to be. This is a natural state. And um, let us say it's a progression of the mind that happens over time, as opposed to the way that people think of jhanas is that you do something really, 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 and then you get the first jhana, and while you got it, then you really, really, really get into the second jhana, and then you really, really, really get into the third jhana. That kind of thing is the way that we look at it, rather than just various stages of relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
And that as you get used to relaxing, you'll get pretty good at it.
Uh-huh.
That in fact, that titillated state of the first jhana is in fact a whole lot more relaxed than the monkey mind is just jumping around all over the place, telling us to go here and go there because we're not paying much attention to what's really happening. So when we really start paying attention to what's really happening, we begin to see, wow, there's so much happening here. Wow, this is all over the place.
Uh-huh.
And that titillating quality comes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially since we've been talking ourselves into how much we like it anyway.
Mm.
hmm But the thing of it
This is
is
also
that
true. Yeah.
if you want to recreate that titillation, you can do that. You can go back into that state. But it's easy
You
enough
can.
just to spend very little or no time in it and then moving into just an easy going, relaxed place.
Mm-hmm. So, so then, so
So
this is,
there's no then.
well,
It's just staying here now. Just enjoy the moment. Just recognizing that you've seized the moment. And so just enjoy it, keep it going, keep it last. But the Western mind wants to know what comes next.
indeed it does, because the Western mind, this Western mind has read a lot of stuff about what's supposed to happen.
But it was written by a whole lot of people who were trying to describe what they went through, and you can't go
Yeah.
through everything that everybody else goes through. You got to find out what's good for you, and you're in the process of doing that, and I congratulate you for it, Jerry.
Well, yes, this is when one
And
thinks of it.
getting your mind out of how it's supposed to be is going to be greatly beneficial for you so that you can then figure out how it actually is for you.
Uh-huh.
This is exactly what we mean by the Sila Bhatta Paramasa, that we're looking for how things are supposed to be so that we can tick it off saying, okay, I've achieved that. And the whole idea really is just relax. Just relax.
And then there are these people going around saying that what you're getting is some sort of state of access concentration, which cannot possibly be anywhere near the jhanas because you haven't sat there for 3 hours.
Well, just because somebody sits for 3 hours and don't get it, and then they do, doesn't mean that the 3 hours of not getting it was needed or necessary or useful. In fact, it was downright harmful.
Mm,
That is
yes.
something that you just do. You just change your mind. You just change your attitude. Just relax, okay? That's the whole way of looking at it. That's certainly the kind of language that's used in the
Yes.
Anapanasati Sutta. Relaxing the body, they call it tranquilizing. To me, a tranquilizer is a gun.
Yeah. Yes, I like
So,
that.
and when you're tranquilized, you're out of it. No, this is not. This is much more just restful, peaceful, easy going, but alert. You're watching what's going on, but there is no danger. That part
Mm,
of the easy going is because you're comfortable and that you're feeling secure. You're alert, but you're not alert to danger. You're just alert to reality.
mm.
All right. So the next quality that we're talking about then is words like piti and sukha and upeka. That upeka is taking us into that stable, balanced, still, peaceful, easygoing state. So there's so much of the terminology within the teaching of the Buddha in Anapanasati that is talking about just that. That when
Upeka,
the mind is unified and organized, the body is content, the feelings are content, the mind's content, everything is okay. These are the, these are the things that we're looking for, and then as the time passes by, that's all right. And you can do that sitting at your desk. You can do that sitting in an automobile, waiting for the driver to come. You can do that waiting in line. You can do that at any time. But we normally get in the habit of, oh, I'm waiting for somebody. I've got to be upset and want them to come.
yeah. Upeka, is that normally translated as unification of mind?
Right, right. Noble samadhi or sama area samadhi is also referred to as right unification of mind, getting our act together, getting into congruency. For instance, telling lies, we're not congruent. If we're doubtful, we're not congruent. If we want something, then because we don't have it, we're not whole. We're not
Mm,
congruent. Okay. Now the psychologists have been talking about that for many, many years, but they never knew how to actually get into that state of congruency, because that congruency also um, is part of the peacefulness. Because the other example would be that we're in turmoil with ourselves, we're arguing with ourselves, we're conflicted, we don't know which way to go, we don't even know that we don't have to go. We think we have to go. Okay,
Hmm.
so there's a delusions in there. And so the whole practice is of Anapanasati is taking all of those components, the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mind states, as well as the mind's objects. And everything kind of cools off, relaxes, settles down.
Now, you mentioned the mind states, um, and this is getting into the sort of third tetrad, isn't it? Um, and I find some difficulty in understanding what is meant by, you know, purity and this kind of thing, um, or I forget exactly
Okay,
what they
let's use
are.
modern language.
Yeah.
Is the mind sharp? Is it focused? Is
Well,
it dull? Is it jumping around? Is it stable? These are the kinds of states that the mind is in. Another one would be, is the mind bright? Is it gladdened? Is it down? Is it dejected? Or another way of saying it, what's your attitude?
well,
The mind states determine the attitude.
by the time you get into the sort of sukha state, I suppose the attitude is mainly very happy and not really much interested in anything else but being very happy.
Yeah, yeah, it can get absorbing in a way.
Yeah. So then your mind isn't sharp at that point because it's taken up with you know, the gladness, the happiness.
Okay. Well, you can think of this in the sense of checking how sharp a knife is.
Hmm.
And part of the sharpening of the knife is also the testing of the knife. How sharp is it? So
Uh-huh.
you can think of this, in fact, this repetitive nature of keep opening and looking and is very much like sharpening the knife.
Hmm.
Okay. And so now, how sharp is it? That's the question that we're talking about is what's the states of the mind now?
Hmm.
Is it dull? Is it wanting? Is it grasping? Is it sharp? Is it exalted? Is it in a state of titillation? Is it in a state of eagerness or doubt? Okay,
Yeah.
so these are various states of mind that people are um, in meditation. And so these actually, then, some of these states of mind are actually a hindrance. That a
Yeah.
lot of people get the idea that when we mean by hindrances is merely unwholesome thoughts, to where an unwholesome mind state is also a hindrance. Dull, lethargic, racing, um, worried.
Yes. Well, it's. I suppose it's easy enough to get into the sort of lethargic state, um, where I'm just going to sit here and be happy and not bother about anything, not pay attention to anything, um, which I suppose is dullness. Your man, now who was it? The man who wrote The Mind Illuminated, Chuladasa. He was big. Well, I seem to remember reading that he was into uh, describing states of dullness. You could be really really dull, and but a sort of in a state of um,
Well,
light
there's kind of
dullness.
nodding off, and then there's before there's nodding off, and
Mm,
then after the nodding off is when the slumping goes.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah,
Okay, so all of those kind of things can be seen in the body and described that way.
yeah.
Okay, so the dullness that doesn't show is the first step, just a little bit of dullness. And that it's if you're doing this in bed at night, there's no problem with that. I mean, that's what the whole point is to go to sleep.
Yeah.
But when we're sitting up, especially in a meditation hall, nodding is not okay if people see it. But slumping and then falling over, snoring, that kind of.
Well, well, I don't know what they do in the Theravada, but I mean, this is the point in Zen where they come and hit you, isn't it?
Yeah, right, exactly.
But yes, I can't see me doing Zen. It all sounds far too hard. Anyway, there we are. Good.
Yeah, so that's part of the hindrance. How far deep into this sloth and torpor? So torpor would actually be right nodding off.
Yeah.
Okay, and sloth has a different quality in the sense that not only is it that the mind is dull, but it often comes from um, either an agitated state of restlessness or a state of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've had enough doubt long enough that I don't care anymore, and so things get kind of dull, not paying attention, and so that sloth has an I don't care attitude. Now, also, the, this, these both of these kind of things can be cured by taking a deep breath.
This is the point at which you use your short breaths, is it?
Yes, this is when you could use the short breath.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
If you can remember,
Well,
as opposed to slumber on.
yes, well, yes, it's quite easy to get into the sort of slumping state, especially if you start off when you're tired, um, physically tired. Anyway, here we are. Well, good. Well, I think I've absorbed enough wisdom for the moment. Let's put it
All
that
right. Well, good.
way.
I'm glad to see you smiling. That's good. Okay.
Well,
And the biggest question that you were asking is in the process would be answered in the sense of that relaxation is many faceted, many phases to it, many different things that need to be relaxed, and all of them are going towards coolness or nibbana. Just let it go, just relax.
yeah, yeah,
That's the whole process. Because when you're really relaxed but alert, there's no dukkha.
yes.
Wondering what's next, that's dukkha.
But of course, living as one is as a householder, whatever, there are other things to do that you have to think about.
But don't give that 100% of your time. Take about 10% out
Yeah, yeah,
and let's practice being happy enough so that we can go back and do that 90% happily.
yeah, yeah. Because there is, I mean, what one sees a possible argument against um, Buddhist meditation generally as that
Oh,
if you do it, you get into a state where you're not going to be functioning in the real world. You're just going to be sitting around being happy. And
but that's because they've got the mentality of once and always kind of things.
yeah,
Uh, we talked about that, and in fact, I've seen it written in books that way.
yeah,
And the answer would be that the monks could probably be out helping people, answering questions, and making people feel good in the morning, and then spending the afternoon in seclusion. And he can
Uh-huh.
do that day in and day out and day in
Yeah.
and day out and do an enormous amount of good in the world.
Yeah.
Okay? Or we can do it a few weeks at a time. Or
Mm-hmm.
go spend 3 months doing nothing. And then you go do some missionary work or go to work in the hospital or whatever, where it's a full day's job. We
Mm-hmm.
actually have in Thailand two monks' hospitals. And all the doctors are monks, and all the nurses are monks, and all the patients are monks.
Yes.
And it's at a what?
Yes. Well, I I used to like when I was in my Benedictine operated boarding school, they made us read improving literature before going to church, go to mass every day. And they had various magazines, and I always quite enjoyed reading the stuff about the medical missionaries because one thought at least they're doing some good in the world, which one didn't feel that going out and preaching to people in Africa was going to do so much good
Well, that's
as
in fact
providing
what
them
they
with hospital.
want. Isn't that the colonial mentality? Let's get those bodies healed up and ready and function and keep those minds broken so they'll do what they're told to do.
I suppose that's right. And we'll give you extra rice if you come to church. Anyway, good. Well, thanks for that. I think I better go and do something useful. And
Okay, how about relax and then go do something useful relaxed?
I'm pretty well relaxed at the moment.
All right, and you're relaxed. That's the whole idea. Let's go do relax before we do work,
Okay.
rather than working ourselves up to do the work, which is what we normally do, and then we're unhappy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, the general state, the sort of ground state, is generalized disgruntledness, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Henry David Thoreau had it nailed solidly when he says men lead lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless, of course, you've got money and then you get really noisy.
Noisy desperation. Yeah, sure, sure. Okay,
And so
well,
let's take the desperation out of it and then
yeah,
go live your life
yeah.
quietly or noisily as you choose. But let's take that desperation out.
Hmm. No, it's not so much desperation. It's just sort of low level dissatisfaction, I think, is
Hmm.
the ground state.
Okay. So dissatisfaction is a better term for it, but Henry David Thoreau called it quiet desperation,
Mm,
and that fits well enough. That we're
yeah,
just going around being dissatisfied.
yeah.
Can't get no satisfaction. Rob
That's
Stewart.
the, that's the one.
And
Yes.
so let's just relish in the fact that we're quite satisfied with nothing at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, that is in itself a strange idea, shall we
Yeah,
say?
but you got nothing right now. Can't you be satisfied with just nothing at all?
Well, for a bit, yes.
Yeah, yeah. No place to go, nothing to
Uh-huh.
go, nothing to do, just nothing.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the ideal is to keep this state going while you're actually doing stuff, isn't it?
Well, you can, but let us check first off our motivations, because normally what we're doing, we don't want to be doing. We
Mm-hmm.
just do it because we were told to do it. We're following some sort of rule. That in fact, when you examine a lot of that stuff, you begin to not do so much. You only do what's needed to be done
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and let all the other people do what they need to do. And magically, a lot of stuff gets done for you.
You remind me of a very nice quote in a science fiction short story written by, I think, a man called Eric Frank Russell, who said, the Earthman of this period that he was talking about sometime in the future, he said, this earthman was not the earthman of the earthbound and lurid past. This earthman had learnt, or these earthmen had learnt to lounge around and let the other life forms do the worrying, which was, I thought, a rather nice idea. This was, in fantasy, obviously, but let the other life forms do the worrying.
Hmm. Exactly. So there's a whole lot of life forms that are out there worried about global warming. To
Mm,
me, all I have to deal with is today is really hot. Today's a hot day.
yeah,
But
yeah,
let all of those other beings out there who were worried about global warming, let them frustrate themselves about global warming.
yeah. Well, the way things are going, you're probably going to be underwater in a few years.
We're at 50 meters, so that's going to be
You're
a
all right.
while.
Yeah,
They'll
good.
flood the road down the hill, but they won't flood the house here.
Uh-huh. Okay. Right. Well, thanks for all of that. And yeah,
Jerry, this has been good call. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
thank
Go
you.
relax.
Okay.
You got
Cheers.
nothing, man. Go relax.
Cheers. Bye bye. No.